Jesus, I am overjoyed to meet you face to face. You've been getting quite a name all around the place, and so much more. Very excited because tonight, the AfterBuzz special events coverage will be of the NBC Jesus Christ Superstar Live, starting now.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
And here we are, starting at the end, which I think is only fitting because if there's ever a story where no spoilers doesn't apply, it would indeed be Jesus Christ Superstar. Welcome to AfterBuzz's special events coverage. We are indeed talking about NBC's live Easter Sunday performance of Jesus Christ Superstar. I'm Christian Bladt, joined by Drexel Heard.
Hello.
And Nate Miller, who is doing, this is your 5th of 6 shows today?
Yes,
all right.
And our third show
Our
together.
third show together.
I feel left out.
Yeah, I know. You really should have done Marvel TV Weekly.
I was
with us.
there in spirit. Like this spirit.
So there's so much to talk about when it comes to this. And we're hearing a little of Judas, which for me, I'm just going to dive right in. Best part of the show. He was the best combination of great singer and best actor. And I was not familiar with Brandon Victor Dixon. Now, he was Aaron Burr in Hamilton. Drexel, I'm going to defer to you. Was he in the original cast or was he a later production of it?
He was a later production.
Okay, because I didn't think he was, I didn't see the original production, of course. I didn't see it until it came to LA.
I did.
Well, good for you. He's amazing, and he certainly stood out for me. I was very excited for this. I didn't really know what we were going to get with it, in all honesty, because some of these TV musicals that they've done, the live, some of them have been okay, some of them have been far cry from okay, and I don't know. What did you guys think overall? Drexel first.
Well, to echo your sentiments about Brandon Dixon, he is been in not just Hamilton, he was in Scottsboro Boys, he was in Color Purple, he was recently in Shuffle Along, so he is a Broadway vet. This is not his first rodeo, and so just having him as Judas was kind of a comfort to me after we had gotten the announcements of John Legend, which we'll talk about I'm plenty. I'm sure.
We will talk a lot about John Legend.
And
the good, the bad, and the legend.
Right. And but overall, I just thought the whole thing. I mean, Jesus Christ Superstar. I know it's your favorite. It's my favorite musical. I don't know if it's literally my favorite musical. And I don't know why. It's just out of all the musicals I could have chosen, Jesus Christ Superstar has always been at the top.
So for me, my mom had the Broadway cast record, and she would play it a lot, and we had the movie, on VHS, because I get it, I'm old. So I would see it a lot, and it was always, the movie's really weird, especially if you're a kid.
I mean, it is.
And I was a good, I was a good boy, went to Sunday school every day, and trying to these are some people that I've heard of. This is some crazy stuff happening here. So I just knew those songs so well, especially What's the Buzz more than anything. I think that was the one that stuck with me as a kid.
I think probably what made me love it more is that I went to a private Baptist school when I was younger, and I think it helped me understand these stories a little bit better. I know some people like to think of Jesus Christ Superstar as this unrealistic thing, but I mean, let's be honest. I mean, if you look at some of the stories in the Bible, they all seem a little unrealistic when it comes down to it.
No, somebody could swallow a whale.
I just meant if you're looking at it as from a historical, and so if you look at the story that Angela Weber has put together, it's not far off from things that we have read in the Bible, and I think it just made some of those, it just enhanced a few of those stories a little bit.
Nate, you and I were talking earlier today a little bit about the show, long before we knew you were even going to be on this. We were just casually talking about it.
Yes, that's how it works.
That's how it works. If you're in the building long enough, you'll be on every show that we do. But Nate, give us your thoughts, sort of, your familiarity with the show and just, your feelings about it in general and how you felt about it last night.
I mean, I actually haven't seen, I've heard about the other productions that they have done for their Easter thing and this new trend of live musicals that they've done. I haven't seen any of them. I haven't heard great things about a lot of them. I'm really not a big musical person, but in the same way, this is my favorite musical. I was a theater kid. I did Grease. I did, a few of the other ones. I've seen Wicked, which I enjoy, and, the American Idiot
American Idiot. Yeah, I
musical.
thought that was good.
That was good. But this is, to me, when I think of what a musical should be, it's this show. I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with I love that soul sound and also the rock sound together. The performances, it's the movie performances for me, because both my parents were big fans of the movie, so I heard that record and that recording in that movie. I've seen it like over and over again. Heaven on Their Minds is like, that one with Carl Anderson is like one of my favorite vocal performances, like hands down, period. So I was really excited when I saw that they were doing the show. After I looked into some of the casting, John Legend was a surprise, and I hadn't seen Hamilton. I'd seen him in I don't know, I saw him in some movie recently.
Brandon Dixon?
Yeah, Brandon Dixon, where he wasn't singing or anything. So I had no idea that he was a Broadway guy. And I thought he killed it. At first, I talked to you about this earlier, like, again, because of my being tied to the movie and that performance, I was like, well, this is not Judas. But especially after watching the show and the way that he performs, and like you said, he is a really phenomenal actor. I think he did a great job. And my overall complaint with the show that I'll say right now is it feels reserved for a show that is kind of about taking a big conserved story and kind of like opening it up and exploring new avenues and being expressive and all this, 70s vibe stuff that was in the movie and in the original, album. I feel like a lot of it was trimmed back and kind of like more reserved than it could have been in terms of not just performance, but also like visual performance, but also vocal performance too, like the emotion and stuff.
Yeah, I would say the staging is fairly consistent with kind of the modern staging of it. I saw the Broadway revival in 2000, and I was lucky enough, about 10 years ago, Ted Neely from the movie actually reprised the role of Jesus on a national tour, and so I got to see that as well. And for me, that's who is irreplaceable, is Ted Neely as Jesus. I've seen other actors do it, and there's a key moment in this that I, unfairly to John Legend, measure him up against Ted, and he didn't even come close, so that's unfortunate. But yeah, to your point, Carl is who I think of first. Actually, that production that I saw with Ted Neely, Corey Glover from the band Living Colour was Judas, and he was great. But I don't know. It's hard to really knock our friend in this version of it. I don't know. I think he was great and completely unfamiliar with him. I mean, I hadn't seen him in anything, at least as far as I know.
Well, I feel like especially when he, in the end in Superstar, like when he actually gets to riff and you see how wide his range is, it's just at that point I was two things. One, I was like, wow, he really can sing. And then I was like, well, why didn't we get more of that throughout the show? Why did he, it felt like he kept it all in. All right, it's the end now I can give him those riffs that we really want to hear.
I think that some of the Jesuses, like I did the show 15, I don't know, a long time ago, in North Carolina, and our Jesus Eric Kunze was amazing. And like I was just listening to this because I actually have the recording of that, and and I had to I listened to John Legend's Gethsemane, then I went back and listened to that one. I was like, okay. And then but then when they did the 2000 version, I can't remember who was Jesus then. It was like the one that came out on DVD.
Yes.
That Jesus was great too.
Yeah.
So I think that we're I love Ted Neely, and a lot of the Jesuses just have to measure up to at least get on par, at least, or at least come close to that,
or at least try.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, we're beating around the bush a lot, and here's what I'll say. We'll start with the good. Let's just dive right in on John Legend. I think that he did a fine job for the majority of the show in terms of the songs. There were a few times that I was like, well, this sure sounds like like a bonus track to a John Legend record, or a B-side or something, and there's times where the songs didn't sound the way you expected them to, but of course, look, that's what he sings like. It's fine. But it's funny you mentioned Gethsemane, because that is the moment, that high note that Ted Neely hits in the movie, and he doesn't even it's like it's not even the same song, the way that he doesn't hit that note. And I was trying to explain to my wife. She's like, well, how was John Legend? I'm like, well, the part that I like. She's like, yeah. And I was just like, yeah, he didn't. And at least it's late in the show, because if it was the first song and he did that, then I think it would have stuck with me the whole time. I think he was okay, especially compared to some of these other televised musicals. But he definitely left me wanting more. But there were a couple of moments where I was like, oh, okay. So I don't know. I think, I'd give him a C+, above average, because he's not average. He's definitely above average. But I think that I don't know who would have been a better choice. I don't have that in my head.
I think I'm sure there's plenty. I think even Constantine Morales would have been.
Well,
a better,
yeah, but I mean, you want to
choices.
get the name recognition. So that's kind of what I was trying to think.
But I do think that Sara Bareilles. I think that anybody could have brought. I mean, it brought in 9 million viewers yesterday, which is not the 18 million that Carrie Underwood brought in.
Well, she's because
but it was also the first one that they did. So there was a lot of eyes on that one. So I think they could have really brought anybody in to play Jesus and then filled around
because
Jesus.
The show it's not Jesus' show. Jesus is not the main character of that show. It's Judas.
Yes. So even to that point, Brandon Dixon could have played Jesus, and then somebody else could have played Judas, and then it would have been better. But John Legend was a producer on this, so it's I'm sure he had some say as to who played Jesus, him, and but I think. Yeah, there were some good parts of him. I was not particularly pleased with what I like to call his clenched fist and shoulderography that he did a lot during the performance. But he did it a lot. And Beyonce did it when she was in Dreamgirls too. If you remember, like she did a lot of shoulderography. And John Legend couldn't get away from that. But I remember I was watching a lot of the feeds, and a lot of people were saying that John Legend had blew his voice out in the first act. And I'm like, John Legend couldn't have blown his voice out in the first act because he could barely get through the temple. And the temple is an area where you just have to. I mean, that's nothing but high notes in that, and he couldn't even hit those, so he couldn't have blown his voice out in the first act because it was not there to begin with.
So if he blew out his voice, it was in dress rehearsal.
It was probably in that too.
It's entirely possible.
Yeah,
because it's such a different style of singing. I mean, he can do a 2-hour concert of his material and be fine, but when you have to sing this, these songs in the way it's expected. I think you're not as well prepared for it.
I did write down yesterday, just one last thing, that I think that the director did John Legend a disservice by allowing him to play Jesus the way that he did. Because during a lot of the Hosanna and all that kind of walking around stuff, John Legend played Jesus as somebody that I had not seen in any production, which was more of the rock star Jesus, and I've never seen a Jesus play to what Judas thought that he was. And instead of being this loving Jesus who went out amongst the people, who was like, nurturing to the people and all that, and it became about John Legend and less about Jesus for the people.
Yeah, that's why I really liked a lot of the costuming and stuff that they did, but I did not like the Jesus robe thing. It was like so much.
The Yeezy robe?
It really was. It was like something that would be out of his collection. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's not very. I am trying to be the same as everyone else ish as we would expect from Jesus. It just came across as like, I'm better than you, I'm above you, which feels odd.
The rockstar angle is interesting when you think about the fact that this show was originally done as a concept album, and it was Ian Gillan from Deep Purple was the singer, and so he just was like, and they wanted him to do it on Broadway, and he's like, no, I'm going to go on tour with my rock band and not do that. But so you would have had an actual rock star in the role, so it would have been interesting to see if way back then was that the intention, and I thought that they dealt with it from a modern point of view in a good way, where the reporters were very TMZ-ish, after he's arrested and all that, which I don't know. I think if you told me that was going to be in there, it would have bothered me. But in the moment, I'm like, actually, no, I think that kind of worked a lot better than I would have expected, So treating him as the superstar, I think was really the way to go when you have, someone who is a fairly well-established singer.
That part is fine. Like, and I've seen they did a revival in 2012 on Broadway that was somewhat similar to that. I just meant the way that John Legend acted as Jesus was I'm a rock star, hear me roar type, which no Jesus has ever played. No actor has ever played. As far as I've seen, no actor has ever played it to that degree where it's been like, hey, look at me. And like Ted Neely didn't play it like that, and none of the other Jesus ever played
you
it like
felt
that.
that other times, other portrayals, it's much more sincere when he's saying to everyone is like, well, you say that, you call me that. He's like, that's not me.
Which is in the lyric.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
He's like,
and so when it gets to that point, you're like, no, dude, you think that too. You know?
Yeah. So let's talk about Sara Bareilles, who, you know, I certainly knew who she was. And I can't say I was excited about the casting. And even when it started, I'm like, okay, she's okay. Then, as I was telling Nate earlier, when I Don't Know How to Love Him, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's why she's here, you know. And sometimes with these, you feel like they do pick people for the name recognition. And when you get somebody from name recognition and they're good, well, that's what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
You know? And the one thing I will say overall, before I ask both of you what you thought of Sara, was that this wasn't filled with names. And a lot of times, like, I think that, I might be wrong, but I feel like the Rocky Horror and the Grease productions, I know different networks, but had too many, like, familiar names and things. And it was like people that weren't necessarily well suited for the roles that they were cast in. So I was glad that, you know, for Broadway people, there's a lot of people that you recognize, but it's not like, oh, this is NBC. So who can we take from NBC shows that we're going to go ahead and plug into, you know, who'd be a good pilot? You know, is Christopher Maloney still on SVU? I know he's not. I was just picking someone that I knew wouldn't be. But anyway, but back to Sara Bareilles. What did you think, Drexel? Just when you heard about the casting and then actually watching it.
Well, I know a lot of my friends had seen Waitress on Broadway, and I still haven't seen it, but I know I have some friends in it as well, and they all say that Sara Bareilles, in her time that she was in Waitress, was phenomenal. So I was like, okay. All right, if she has lived up to the Broadway standard of being able to not only lead a show for 8 shows a week, and have some great feedback from not only the audience but her cast members as well, then yeah, she can do that. And not only from a vocal standpoint, but from an actress standpoint as well, because they're very different things when you have to do both. Like John Legend, great singer, terrible actor. And you know what I mean? But at the same time, Sara came out and she was like, I'm gonna be a great singer, and I'm going to cry at the end of this.
Yeah.
I'm going to single tear this on my way out, and that's what you're going to remember.
Yep.
You know, and so I think they did a lot of pushing us on Sara Bareilles over the course of the advertising.
Yeah, I
just
agree.
so that we could like her.
Right.
By the time that we got to the show. So we wasn't just like, hey, it's Sara Bareilles doing a show. Oh, hey, it's Sara Bareilles acting and she's doing a show at the same time. So I think that did her a favor, having us see her as many times as we did during the advertising over the past few weeks.
What did you think of her performance?
I loved her. She was one of my favorite performances consistently. And yeah, she was definitely the highlight in a lot of scenes with John and his Jesus. It was nice to see her there actually reacting to things that are going on around them and engaging with the other characters. But I mean, I've always known that she had a great voice, but I think this is probably the difference that really hurt John is he has a very his own style of how he sings. He's had a long singing career. He's written lots of songs. He sings in a very specific way, and it's hard to meld that to another character. Whereas I think Sara, probably because of the Broadway that she's already done, I think she really got in the character. She was really acting, and in that performance, when she throws her hands up, I really feel like she's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to love him. I've never been in this situation before.
Or she could have been like, why did he just leave the stage?
Why is he wearing that?
Why did he leave?
I enjoyed her a lot. She killed it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, if we're ranking people, she's right up there. I would
She's
say.
my number 2
after Judas.
Oh no, she's my number 3.
Who is your number 1?
Pilot is my number 1.
Pilot, I thought was good.
I thought he
Ben
crushed
Daniels.
it. I thought he crushed the first part of the song and all three.
It was interesting
speakers I thought
because
were great.
to me, I was just like, It's not Gary Oldman, is it? But it was like I got like not not Winston Churchill, but like Commissioner Gordon. I got like a Gary Oldman vibe from this guy, and I'm like, so what should I know Ben Daniels from? Because I guess I'm an idiot.
Nothing.
Okay, great.
He is a British actor. However, he did. I was looking down his credits. He did Dangerous Liaisons, basically, with Laura Linney a few years ago.
Okay, sure.
But I didn't know he was a vocalist. And I was like, okay. There were a couple of questionable choices that he made as Pilot, because at one point he was very serious, and then at one point he got comical, and I was like, so which one is it? Which Pilot are you going to play? Are you going to play the more Harrody Pilot, or are you going to play the
and it's during that
when
that
he like
part
got down on his knee
yeah.
and he was like, and I was like, okay, pick a lane. And stick with it, and because you're doing great, well, which is fine, but like, don't make a big show, because you haven't been making a show about it the whole time.
Yeah,
like now you're on your. It was a lot. He was great though. I did like. I mean, Pilot's Dream is one of my favorite songs, and 39 Lashes. I mean,
sure.
think you can't beat that.
So what was it? Was there something in particular? Was there a moment where you're like, oh, I really like this, or just?
I think it was
after the
even
fact?
in just Pilot's Dream. Just from there, I was like, oh, okay, this is really cool, because it's not really one of the songs that I.
It's not usually a standout.
It's
I
not.
Get karaoke to that.
I don't think of it.
Let's go right after
Right
this.
after.
But
Nate can't, because he's got to do 4 more
Yeah, I
shows.
can.
per week
Yeah,
again.
I'm sorry, I've clocked in. Yeah, and then it's weird though, because I really liked the 40 Lashes at like until like 27, and then I was like,
Too many
"All right."
lashes.
No, I mean, it's important to do all 40, but like, I just
39.
feel like they just got
One to
39.
grow on. Yeah.
I like to round up. Okay, come on.
Well, that's funny, because it was not funny, but I was thinking about watching that part, and I was just like, I'm like, yeah, there are times where I could imagine watching this with my kid, and I'm like, this ain't it. It's like, hey, why are they beating Jesus? And like, that's really kind of the question about the whole show. So if you're gonna ask, I mean, I guess it should be there. And one of those moments where I'm glad that Judas's suicide, was just, we sort of see the ladder fall, and I'm like, good, because I'll tell you about the movie version. Seeing that as a kid, that was messed up.
Well,
I should not have seen that.
I
as a
was
kid.
really upset about that. That they just showed the ladder, and that they didn't really.
I think network
I know,
TV, Easter,
and everybody knows what happens, but maybe it's because I was scarred as a child from watching the.
Can you
movie
imagine if
version
somebody's
so many
watching
times?
right now? They're like, wait,
I
no,
wanted
what
some
happens?
Tanks and, like,
I heard
bus.
that you could see something in the arena,
Oh, okay.
Probably on the other side.
not on the TV.
Oh, interesting.
So
I think I saw shadows of like his legs.
I'm
but-
surprised they didn't even drop like a dummy legs down.
yeah.
Something that we could actually visualize, like, oh, that happened, not just a ladder falling. And then they cut to commercial really fast. So I was really surprised that we did not see more of
Well,
that.
let's talk about sort of the arena and the setting, because once I found out they were doing it in New York, I didn't even look into where it was, and I didn't know any of that. Once I was like, oh, I'm not going to go to it. All right, I don't care. And so, I mean, I figured there was going to be an audience, but I think some of the ones that they've done haven't had an audience. This one,
did.
yeah, Grease did, yeah, and they really implemented a lot. But I feel like Sound of Music did not.
No.
I think you might have heard them leaving halfway through. I'm teasing. I'm kind of teasing. I mean, because this is, it's billed as, the concert version of it, it's the performance. So I like that there was that huge crowd,
The mosh pit was great.
yeah. And yeah, I mean, and there's a moment where it's funny, because I when I was taking notes, it reminded me, when Jesus is doing the rock star thing and all the high fives, and it reminds me of when Jay Leno hosted the Tonight Show, and every night he'd come out and he'd give high fives to everybody down in the audience. It's like Leno Christ superstar. Good for you. I thought it was, they utilized the crowd though, and I mean, we really heard them. And I don't know, like I was saying before, the sort of wide open like warehouse space is consistent with a lot of the way that I've seen it. I mean, you'll use a Broadway stage to make it look like that. Some people, I think, were underwhelmed by the staging, sort of just how sparse it was. The fact that it's like, oh, so they're doing this in a warehouse, huh? What did you think, Drexel?
Well, first of all, Jason Ardzon West, who did the set design, also had done Lana Del Rey's tour as well as Adele's tour. So he is no stranger to arena style sets. And so I just thought I love a good scaffolding.
I do
love
too.
scaffolding. I mean, Hamilton's got that kind
hate
of bare,
scaffolding.
that bare set. Rent had that kind of same scaffolding set. So I love something where you have to kind of, it would take, like, you have to, as an audience
Use your
member, have to
imagination.
use your imagination instead of us, the set designer giving you everything, because Jesus Christ Superstar is what it is. But I thought it was great. I mean, the fly out at the end was beautiful. They were at the Brooklyn Armory, so they bust people down, and then all the audience members down. So I thought that NBC figured out what they need to do going forward, because next is Bye Bye Birdie. Fox figured out what they need to do for Rent, and what will and will not work, because they cannot go back to just a stale, live show without an audience.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense that the initial ones were done that way, because like, I don't know how much we want to spend on this. Let's see how it does. And yeah, I think bigger is definitely better in this sense. What did you think of?
I think thematically it makes sense though too for this show, for there to be a big crowd that's going nuts for Jesus, John Legend, whatever. So I think they played a lot in that regard. Hopefully, if they do another one of these with a big crowd, that they incorporate it in some way, because that is one of the things about live performances that makes it so unique, is that you have that energy. Every show is different, and you're kind of feeding off of that. It felt like some of these parts were recorded.
I haven't read anything about that. You did ask before we started, and I did a quick Google search, and I haven't seen that. That doesn't mean it's not out there. I just didn't find it. I wonder if there was some sweetened recorded tracks
For our feed, for the West Coast feed.
Yeah,
And I didn't even watch it live. I watched it after.
yeah. I
So
watched
even
it.
then,
I watched it
may
on the
have
NBC
been-
app, and just because I figured it would be just easier to get through it that way. But yeah, so we do get that a lot, actually, because we're on the West Coast. If anything goes wrong, we don't get to see it. So it's a good question. There were a couple of moments that felt maybe, but I don't know. It's when something, here's the thing. It's not one of those where we all watched it and we're like, oh yeah, well, I mean, obviously there was a lot. So if they did it, it was probably in key spots and well done. The fact that we're even wondering, I guess, if they did it, then they did it right. But I wonder if anybody watching right now has any inside information in that. Go ahead, let us know in the chat, or you can reach out to us on social media. We will be happy to continue the conversation. And speaking of conversations, I'd like to talk about our own superstar. Want to have fun, learn, and grow in all areas of your life? For those who do, have we got the podcast for you? Conversations with Maria Menounos podcast edition is hosted by our AfterBuzz TV founder and drops every Friday on iTunes. Conversations with Maria Menounos features celebrity and influencer interviews, along with secrets and tips on how to be better in all aspects of life. From health and wellness to career, relationships, finances, and more, let our Maria be the big sister you've always wanted. Just go to iTunes and subscribe to Conversations with Maria Menounos for free. Be sure to rate and comment, and when you do, let Maria know that it was us who sent you there. That's right. The AfterBuzz TV special events coverage, Jesus Christ Superstar, sent you there.
Please be specific.
Yes, Conversations with Maria Menounos, podcast edition. Check it out. She has great guests on that show. She'll also have some AfterBuzzers. Maybe I've been on that show a couple times, but whatever. But check it out. We all love Maria, and who knows what you can take away from it. Like I said, she's our superstar.
She is.
Speaking of superstars, for those watching on YouTube, I am making no bones about why I was most excited about this production. And my favorite standout moment is Alice Cooper as King Herod, whom he has done the role before. It was, I think, the 25th anniversary cast recording, and that's where I've heard it before. And as Nate and I were saying before the show, it was done better. He was probably only 45 at that point. He is 70 now. God bless him. But interesting turn of phrase for this show. But yes, God bless him. But I had never seen him do it before. And I'm a huge fan of his. First concert I ever saw, Alice Cooper in 1990. That's just a little inside information.
Nice.
I thought there's a few different ways to do the role of Herod. There's the way that we see him in the movie. I have seen a very game show host version, and the production that I saw with Ted Neely, it was like almost like borderline stoner dude, like Seth Rogen type in a bathrobe. And it was just like, amuse me. And I like this sort of big, Carnival Barker combination game show host, greatest showman on earth, all of that in the sparkly jacket. And just the way that as a rock star, he just milks every drop out of the audience. He does all the things that a rock star would do, but it's just like, well, that's King Herod. So I am very biased, but I thought it was really fun. I love the whole production. I love the girls that came out, and I feel like him sort of mugging for the crowd probably dragged an extra 30 to 45 seconds, maybe even 2 minutes out of the performance. But Nate, what were your thoughts on Alice Cooper as King Herod?
It was good. I enjoyed the performance. I think I would have liked somebody who could have given us a little bit more. I think it's a really upbeat number. It's one of my standout tracks, and it just felt really subdued. The dancers are a nice touch. Sorry, it's been a long day. My mouth is failing
You've done
me.
so much talking today. Yeah.
My mouth is protesting. Yeah, I just felt like it could have been a bigger number, a bigger show than it was. But I did like his vocal performance. I think it's a good role for him. I know why they did it, especially with the past. And I listened to the old recording the other day before I even watched the show, because I was looking through the songs like, holy crap, Alice Cooper did a recording, which was cool. I just don't. I'm really hoping that as they get further into this, they will get more and more people who do musicals, theater actors, and people from Broadway, and less novelty star attracting. I know they have to get people to come watch, but like, if it's at a detriment of the performance of the show, I don't think 7-year-old Alice Cooper should be King Herod.
Right. I think that there's a lot of, things at work there. One, he is a devout Christian, and I'm sure he very much wanted this. And if you've seen the documentary Supermensch about his manager, Shep Gordon, Shep probably got on the phone with some people and were like, yeah, so this is going to happen. And but I understand how maybe people might have not have been as excited as I was. But I'm sure that when he heard it was happening, he's like, so I'm going to be in that, right? Yeah. But I think, like I was saying, there were less gimmick casting than I thought we might have gotten for this.
Yeah.
He was definitely a gimmick casting. He's not really going to reach that many people. It's not like you had David Lee Roth in his prime, because then you would have gotten a lot of it, which, by the way, would be amazing.
Even Alice Cooper in his prime.
That's true. Yeah.
Would have been spectacular.
Although his voice kind of always sounded like this. It's just there was more energy to it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I'm not. I think his vocal performance was good.
Yeah.
It's just just the way that he came down the stairs, and I mean, he's 70. Like, he can only move so much.
Yeah.
It's a musical. Everyone else is.
Yeah, I mean, even the guy who had just gotten 39 lashes moved better.
Right.
But, Drexel, what did you think of Alice Cooper's King Herod?
I am biased because the King Herod that was in when I did it was great, and I've seen some really great King Herods before. But I thought that Alice Cooper, from a casting perspective, was great for people who are really fans of the 70s version of the musical, because we had John Legend and Sara Bareilles, who a different generation probably don't have a clue about. But having Alice Cooper there brought that part of the generation to the show. Like, oh, Alice Cooper's doing it, so maybe I'll watch it. That John Legend, that Sara Bareilles, I don't know these people that well, but I do know Alice Cooper, so I'm going to watch it. So I think that worked for that piece of it. I thought that they could have given Alice Cooper a little bit more, like if he wasn't going to move, then make the set move.
Right.
Like make the lights dance a little more, enhance his performance a little more, something that he probably can't do, because he kind of walked and he walked around the girls, he let the girls walk around him. Like, you gotta do one or the other.
Should double down, get him a big fancy throne,
right,
and then just add more dancers and like
that could have been, because that's one of the, it's not the 11 o'clock number, but it is like the you know, like the intermission. It's not the intermission. It's like almost like that you know, it's like that
But there's
number.
there's a lot of heavy stuff.
Yeah.
that happens.
It's the last big number.
Fun
It's the
number.
last fun you have for
Yeah.
a while, and I mean, I guess the Judas number at the end, it's sort of a, you know,
Right.
it's up to you as to how fun that is. The performance is great.
Right.
You know, the energy is always high, but yeah, you have some really serious stuff after that. So I think it's an important part of the show.
Yeah. Again, a directorial disservice to the actor that's playing it, because if you know that your actor is unable to handle something, not that Alice
to
Cooper's
craft
unable,
the performance
but
around
is
that.
going to play it a certain way, and for the television it needs to be something different, even for a stage, because everything has to be bigger for the stage, then everything around it has to be bigger. You can't just put 4 girls around him and think that's going to enhance a performance, like, because it's not going to do that.
It depends on the 4 girls, but I know what you're saying.
He did have a sweet suit though.
Yeah, I think he's gonna probably try and keep that suit.
He probably
it's from
has.
his
It's
personal
probably not
collection.
there. He's
Yeah,
probably
He
not
just
there.
showed up wearing that, and they're like, "All right."
That's true. When he goes out on tour, he might be wearing that this summer. In sort of our last few minutes here, let's kind of talk about, on the whole, what worked versus what didn't. I think, and again, because we're on the West Coast, maybe we got less of it, but there were still some jerky camera movements, but there were some really cool overhead shots that they got that I would have liked more, but maybe if we saw it on the East Coast feed, we would have seen them go badly. I don't know. I think, to what Drexel was saying earlier, what we need them to do is learn from this for future musicals and just go big, you know? And I think this one sort of worked as a good transition, where because you can get away with the sparse sets. You know, Bye Bye Baby, you're not going to do it where it looks like a warehouse. You know, you have to actually really, you know, have the visuals that go with it. And from an aesthetic, just from what you saw, what were some of the things that stood out, good or bad, for you, Drexel?
One of the things they did a little bit differently was the way that they did the temple.
Yeah.
With the glitter. I was not expecting that.
No.
I have not decided if I liked it or if I didn't like it. I thought
I was going to say, I've decided I didn't like it.
I think I didn't like it for the sake of the crew, who had to clean that up. Who had to clean that up
very
in the
Yeah.
commercial break. Because I think that was the only thing that was really different. Because they started out. What didn't make sense to me was they started out with the table down the center,
Yeah.
and then they didn't use the table as much as they should have. Like, so why make the table a central theme if you're not going to use it throughout the whole show? If it's not going to become part of the parts of the set.
There are times where you see it. You see it in the temple. You see it when Caiaphas is there. There's a few key moments
Yeah.
where you do see it,
Yeah.
but you don't get it all the way throughout.
And so you're like, so what's the point of having it? What's the point of the cast going out of the way to move it if you are not going to use it?
I think that has to do more with the overall sense of the theme, and this is what I got. Maybe this is just because the movie is my main reference, but it's not. We're not seeing these actions play out. We're seeing a reenactment of these actions play out, and I think that's how he's gotten around this way of it being really sacrilegious, which I'm sure a lot of people still think it is. It's not. He's not saying that this is what happened. He's saying that, well, what if this is what happened? What if this is why Judas did what he did? What if Jesus was thinking about these things, and etc. And so within that, we see them coming and spray painting the Jesus and breaking up the table and getting ready for the overture and the first song, setting everything up to be like, all right, this is what we're going to talk about today. At least that's how I saw it.
Right. Well, the key always is that it is, yes, what if it was this way, but it's also from Judas's perspective. So it's like this is how he saw it. So, you know, it's a very biased account in that respect. But yeah, I think, to what Drexel was saying about the temple, I remember, I don't even need to look. I know the note that I took. It was like if middle schoolers had to design what like a Coke party looked like, just throwing the glitter around.
Right.
Like, yeah, this is it, right? This is what, like, you know, is debauchery. And I I don't know what it looked like on the stage, but on TV, I was like, well, the glitter sparkled nice, but no, this didn't. And that is one of my favorite songs from the show is The Temple.
Yeah. And it's hard because he didn't even like vocally, he just wasn't there on The Temple either. And so that was just
that's where he really let me down before he even gets me.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
One of the things I did want to bring up, because we've talked a lot about some of the big problem areas, but I think going back from a casting perspective, because I know a lot of people have been saying like, oh, I wish they had Broadway performers in it and they need more. I'm like, the entire cast except for 2 people came from Broadway at some point.
Right. So except for John Legend and Alice Cooper.
Except for John Legend and Alice Cooper, because Norm Lewis was amazing. There were some questionable low notes, but he was amazing. He was Caiaphas. Okay. Jason Tam, who did a chorus line in Les Mis and If Then and a whole bunch of stuff, was Peter. You know, Could You Start Again, Please was great. But my standout was Jin Ha, who was from M Butterfly from last year, who was Annis, because Annis is such a underrated role, and it's such a fun role because he's really the bad guy. You know, like, you know what I mean? Like, he's really the nasty one. Caiaphas, nasty, whatever. Annis, yeah, he's like the Kellyanne Conway. Yeah. You know what I mean? He's like the one.
I can't believe it took you until almost the end of the show to make a Trump comparison.
You know, he's the Kellyanne Conway, and he's just so nasty. But it's so good. And Jin Ha played a really good Annis, and so I wish more people were talking about the ensemble because they killed it. I mean, even the orchestra was 32 people, including the kid from School of Rock who was the lead guitarist.
He was great. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned him. I forgot to mention that in the beginning. Yeah,
School of Rock the musical, and just everything. I mean, everybody around John. Thank God for everybody around John Legend because they killed it.
The band killed it.
Or thank Jesus.
Or
whatever you prefer.
Jesus.
I thought that the vocal and performance was great for the ensemble. I thought that the wardrobe and styling was an interesting choice. My note here from when I watched it was it looks like they took the musical Fame and set it in like a post-apocalyptic, like nuclear holocaust, where it's just like, oh, this is the future version of Fame. And I was just like, it's a choice.
Because Fame will be the next musical on somebody's list.
They're going to live forever, okay?
I'd rather see Fame than Bye Bye Birdie.
Yeah, that's true. But it's Jennifer Lopez in Bye Bye Birdie. But
that doesn't help.
Yeah.
Yikes.
But the costume designer had won the Emmy for Hairspray. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, like, it was fine, but... I mean, it looked like the time.
I didn't like Judas's leather, and I didn't like Jesus's robe, and those are like the 2 main characters. So
I would have liked a throwback to Carl Anderson's, like
it's gonna be a fail.
Oh, that was a great look.
I would have loved a good throwback to people who loved the movie in that performance.
They went it was like a halfway throwback with a lot of designs where it was like retro-esque, but like clearly new retro. It was interesting.
Yeah. Well, let's wind it up here and say, in the future, would you watch any portion of this again? Would you look up specific songs? My wife was talking to me about it. She's seen the show with me a few times, and she doesn't have time to watch it, between work and 2 kids. So she's like, all right, I'm going to look for a few songs. And I told her, which ones. I will certainly watch Alice Cooper's King Herod again. And there are a couple other things that I'd like to see. But if I want to see the show, I'm still going to go to the movie. I mean, if there were a touring company, in LA again, I'd probably check it out because I love the show so much. But my default is still going to be the movie. Drexel, is there something that you can think of from this show that, like, I would maybe if I wanted to hear that song, I would like to see it from this version again? Or does nothing really stand out in that way?
The overture was amazing. I think Superstar at the end of Brandon Dixon was great.
Yeah.
I don't know that there was a lot of songs in the middle that I'd be like if I really wanted to listen to John Legend, yeah. I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
But if I want to listen to John Legend,
John Legend,
if I want to listen to John Legend, I'm going to listen to John Legend.
But like,
music,
if you're like, I really want a good musical right now, but I also want to listen to John Legend, and if you needed both of them at the same time, you could say, yeah, I'm going to go listen to Jesus Christ Superstar. But here's the thing. I know we've talked a lot bad about, not as much positive stuff about John Legend. It is probably the hardest thing he's ever done.
Oh,
Yes.
for
And
sure.
so, like,
And
you
for
know,
him to be
hats
willing to
off
take it on,
right.
yeah.
And so hats
Kudos
off to
to
John
him,
Legend
yeah.
for that kind of stuff. I
He
think
definitely put a lot of work into it too.
I think that as fans, like, we're looking at it from a critical, like, here is, what they probably could have done better and why would they do it like that. And I'm sure there are a lot of people out there and a lot of folks that I've seen on social media, even the reviews. And I was talking to somebody about that today. The reviews made John Legend an afterthought. Variety, New York Times, like, they all made John Legend a little afterthought, which I was surprised about because like they wrote a whole article and then a paragraph about John Legend at the bottom of the article. So, I don't know that I would go back and watch it again.
What about you, Nate? Anything that you think, would you want to check out anything again, or did you just go
probably,
back to the
I could see myself watching it with someone who hasn't seen it, who wanted to see it. But just like you said, if I really wanted to watch it, I would watch the movie. So this doesn't. I don't know. I may no.
may
They need to do it at the Hollywood Bowl.
I would love to go.
I would, yeah.
Oh,
I
that'd
would
be
go.
amazing.
I would go.
That's one of the. Yeah, I mean, there's
With
some of
Alice
those.
Cooper.
Well, obviously, there are some of those that they've done where I'm like, oh, maybe I would check out that show. This is the one where I'm like, I don't care what day of the week it is, I'm gonna go. Anyway, let us know what you thought. You can reach out to all of us. You can, of course, comment on this video archived on YouTube, but you can tweet me at ChristianDMZ. Drexel, where do people find you?
At Drexel Heard.
And Nate, where do people find you other than in a few minutes on the next after show?
You can find me on all social media at Dog Like Nate. That's dog with 2 G's.
All right. Well, thanks so much. Thanks to everybody. And we really appreciate you spending the time with us. And keep an eye out for us. You'll see us on all other sorts of shows here at AfterBuzz. Thanks, everyone.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.